Stream is live, it says.
Yay! It's Friday. I am Old New Dude, and he is...
Richard York, Asher's Trueborn son. And we're late because I'm having difficulties here.
Yeah.
Sorry about
that. He's having technical difficulties.
We're wonderful north of the wall.
Hey, Mother. Hey, Lady Thistle.
Yeah.
You both beat Chris? Ooh. I hope he's okay.
I gave some thoughts on Lizzie's Blue Sky. I think it was Blue Sky. Was it Twitter? I think it was Blue Sky. I don't know. Anyway, I one of the things that I said was you guys were talking about the bringing the flood in Gilgamesh.
Mm.
And that's sort of how the Book of the New Sun sort of ends with him bringing the flood and killing everybody. and so when George jokes about bringing the meteor, I'm like, wait a minute, the fantasy with the boy who becomes God King time traveler ends with Armageddon, basically.
Maybe that's what happened in the last long night, and everything had to start all over again too.
Well, you don't actually learn that's what. Well, I mean, it's kind of hinted that that's what's going to happen, but you don't really learn that's what happens until the sequel. And then there's a whole sequel series. I mean, when you're dealing with time travel and things, you could have lots of sequels and things.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
I wonder where Chris is.
There's the Reread and Wolf podcast says you can't spoil a Gene Wolfe story. A Gene Wolfe story barely spoils itself.
I might have to end up reading that one of these days.
Yep.
All right. Where's my favorite day? It's a Jaime chapter. I'm so ready.
All right, let's do it then. Storm 44, Jaime 6. I dreamed of you.
I dreamed of him.
Do you anyway? All right, this was pretty long. I barely cut anything out of it too, so it's let's get to it.
All right.
Though his fever lingered stubbornly, the stump was healing clean, and Qyburn said his arm was no longer in danger. Jaime was anxious to be gone, to put Harrenhal, the bloody mummers, and Brienne of Tarth all behind him. A real woman waited for him in the Red Keep. Real crazy. I am sending Qyburn. I suppose I should somehow speak that softly yet clearly, but I don't know how to do that. So I'm sending Qyburn with you to look after you on the way to King's Landing, Roose Bolton said on the morn of their departure. He has a fond hope that your father will force the Citadel to give him back his chain in gratitude. We all have fond hopes. If he grows me back a hand, my father will make him Grand Maester. Steelshanks Walton commanded Jaime's escort, blunt, brusque, brutal, at heart a simple soldier. Jaime had served with his sort all his life. Men like Walton would kill at their lord's command, rape when their blood was up after battle, and plunder wherever they could. Once the war was done, they would go back to their homes, trade their spears for hoes, wed their neighbors' daughters, and raise a pack of squalling children. Such men obeyed without question, but the deep, malignant cruelty of the brave companions was not a part of their nature. Both parties left Harrenhal the same morning beneath a cold gray sky that promised rain. Sir Aenys Frey had marched 3 days before, striking northeast of the King's Road. Bolton meant to follow him. The Trident is in flood, he told Jaime. Even at the Ruby Ford, the crossing will be difficult. You will give my warm regards to your father? So long as you give mine to Robb Stark. That I shall. On reread, we noticed. But don't worry, the character who tried to deny Tyrion a trial and who denied Merit Frey Pod, Hyle, and Brienne trials when saying, take the sword and slay the Kingslayer, meant she wanted to start granting trials now. Some brave companions had gathered in the yard to watch them leave. Jaime trotted over to where they stood. Zalo, how kind of you to see me off. Pig, Timian, you miss me. No last just to share Shagwell? To lighten my way down the road? And Rorge, did you come to kiss me goodbye? Bugger off, cripple, said Rorge. If you insist. Rest assured, though, I will be back. A Lannister always pays his debts. Jaime wheeled his horse around and rejoined Steelshanks Walton and his 200. Trial by plot armor. So Zala the Fat is the one George seems most likely to repay, given he cut off the hand itself, right? And
Right.
Zala could be with Earthwick the Faithful heading to Old Town. Otherwise, I don't know. We don't really have any idea where he would be.
Right.
Lord Bolton had accoutred him as a knight, preferring to ignore the missing hand that made such warlike garb a travesty. Jaime rode with sword and dagger on his belt. Shield and helm hung from his saddle, chainmail under a dark brown surcoat. He was not such a fool as to show the line of Lannister on his arms, though, nor the plain white blazon that was his right as a sworn brother of the Kingsguard. He found an old shield in the armory, battered and splintered, the chipped paint still showing most of the great black bat of House Loston upon a field of silver and gold. The Lostons held a Harrenhal before the Wents, and had been a powerful family in their day, but they died out ages ago, so no one was likely to object to him bearing their arms. Our characters are often wrong. Brienne finds out this is a bad idea because people do object.
Yes.
He would be no one's cousin, no one's enemy, no one's sworn sword. In sum, no one. Jaime should join the Faceless Men confirmed. They left through Harrenhal's small eastern gate and took their leave of Roose Bolton and his host 6 miles farther on, turning south to follow along the lake road for a time. Walton meant to avoid the King's Road as long as he could, preferring the farmers' tracks and game trails near the Godslock. The King's Road would be faster. Jaime was anxious to return to Cersei as quickly as he could. If he made haste, he might even arrive in time for Joffrey's wedding. I want no trouble, said Steelshanks. Gods know who we'd meet along that King's Road. No one you need fear, surely. You have 200 men. Aye, but others might have more. The Lord said to bring you safe to your Lord Father, and that's what I mean to do. I have come this way before, Jaime reflected a few miles further on, when they passed a deserted mill beside the lake. Weeds now grew where once the miller's daughter had smiled shyly at him, and the miller himself had shouted out, "The tourney's back the other way, sir," as if I had not known. King Aerys made a great show of Jaime's investiture. He said his vows before the king's pavilion, kneeling on the green grass in white armor while half the realm looked on. When Sir Gerald Hightower raised him up and put the white cloak about his shoulders, a roar went up that Jaime still remembered all these years later. But that very night, Aerys had turned sour, declaring that he had no need of 7 Kingsguard here at Harrenhal. Jaime was commanded to return to King's Landing to guard the Queen and little Prince Viserys, who remained behind. Even when the White Bull offered to take that duty himself, so Jaime might compete in Lord Went's tourney, Aerys had refused. He'll win no glory here, the king had said. He's mine now, not Tywin's. He'll serve as I see fit. I am the king. I rule, and he'll obey.
A quick thing.
Yes,
After
sir.
this, oh, Chris is late. After this, Aerys will not let Jaime out of his sight. He's always had Jaime near him, but this one time, Jaime is sent away. Could Jaime have actually been able to win the tourney? And it's some random leaping or something that gets Jaime sent away to
Interesting.
where Rhaegar could win?
Oh, yeah, probably. That's probably, it certainly seems possible.
Okay.
That was the first time that Jaime understood. It was not his skill with sword and lance that had won him his white cloak, nor any feats of valor he performed against the Kingswood Brotherhood. Aerys had chosen him to spite his father, to rob Lord Tywin of his heir. Even now, all these years later, the thought was bitter. And that day, as he'd ridden south in his new white cloak to guard an empty castle, it had been almost too much to stomach. He would have ripped the cloak off then and there if he could have, but it was too late. He had said the words whilst half the realm looked on, and the Kingsguard served for life. Qyburn
Kind
fell into
of like John.
Yep. Except that, because I mean, obviously because John was thinking about, well, he even tried, right?
Right.
Hey, Charles, waving from under the 3 singers. Qyburn fell in beside him. Is your hand troubling you? The lack of my hand is troubling me. The mornings were the hardest. In his dreams, Jaime was a whole man, and each dawn he would lie half awake.
Quick, before you go any further, remember he says if he could regrow me a hand, the father make him.
Yep.
That's foreshadowing. I think Jaime's going to get a dead man's hand.
Okay. Yeah. Or maybe he'll get a hand from like R'hllor, like Victarion has, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be, because he said it about Qyburn. I think it's going to be Qyburn that does it.
The pod says, yes, dude, Jaime is the best at everything.
Exactly. That's why he wears a red cape.
Don't worry. In his dreams, Jamie was a whole man, and each dawn he would lie half awake and feel his fingers move. It was a nightmare. Some part of him would whisper, refusing to believe even now, only a nightmare. But then he would open his eyes. I understand you had a visitor last night, said Kyburn. I trust that you enjoyed her. Jamie gave him a cool look. She did not say who sent her. The maester smiled modestly. Your fever was largely gone, and I thought you might enjoy a bit of exercise. Pia is quite skilled, would you not agree? And so willing. She had been that, certainly. She slipped in his door and out of her clothes so quickly that Jamie had thought he was still dreaming. It hadn't been until the woman slid in under his blankets and put his good hand on her breast that he roused. She was a pretty little thing, too. I was a slip of a girl when you came for Lord Went's tourney and the king gave you your cloak, she confessed. You were so handsome, all in white, and everyone said what a brave knight you were. Sometimes when I'm with some man, I close my eyes and pretend it's you on top of me, with your smooth skin and gold curls. I never truly thought I'd have you, though. Sending her away had not been easy after that, but Jamie had done it all the same. I have a woman, he reminded himself. Do you send girls to everyone you leech? He asked Kyburn. More often, Lord Vargo sends them to me. He likes me to examine them before, well, suffice it to say that once he loved unwisely, and he has no wish to do so again. But have no fear, he is quite healthy, as is your maid of Tarth. Jimmy gave him a sharp look. Brienne? Yes, a strong girl, that one, and her maidenhead is still intact, as of last night at least. Kyburn gave a chuckle. He sent you to examine her? To be sure, he is fastidious, shall we say. Does this concern the ransom? Jimmy asked. Does her father require proof she is still maiden? You have not heard, Kyburn gave a shrug. We had a bird from Lord Selwyn, in answer to mine. The Evenstar offers 300 dragons for his daughter's safe return. I had told Lord Vargo there were no sapphires on Tarth, but he will not listen. He is convinced the Evenstar intends to cheat him. 300 dragons is a fair ransom for a knight. The goat should take what he can get.
A knight.
Yeah, so Jamie's calling her a knight here, basically, right?
Yeah.
The goat is Lord of Harrenhal. The Lord of Harrenhal does not haggle. The news irritated him, though he supposed he should have seen it coming. The lie spared you a while, wench. Be grateful for that much. If her maidenhead's as hard as the rest of her, the goat will break his cock off trying to get in, he jested. Brienne was tough enough to survive a few rapes, Jamie judged. Though she resisted too vigorously, Vargo Hope might start lopping off her hands and feet. If he does, why should I care? I might still have a hand if she'd let me have my cousin's sword without getting stupid. Sounds like Arya there. He'd almost taken off her leg himself with that first stroke of his, but after that she had given him more than he wanted. Hope may not know how freakish strong she is. He'd best be careful or she'll snap that skinny neck of his. And wouldn't that be sweet? Would you settle for an ear being bitten off? Kyburn's companionship was wearing on him. Jamie trotted toward the head of the column. A round little tick of a Northman name of Nage went before Steelshanks with the peace banner, a rainbow-striped flag with 7 long tails on a staff topped by a 7-pointed star. Shouldn't you Northmen have a different sort of peace banner? He asked Walton. What are the 7 to you? Southern gods, the man said, but it's a southern peace we need to get you safe to your father. My father. Jamie wondered whether Lord Tywin had received the goat's demand for ransom, with or without his rotted hand. What is a swordsman worth without his sword hand? Half the golden Castle Rock? 300 dragons? Or nothing? His father had never been unduly swayed by sentiment. Tywin Lannister's own father, Lord Tytos, had once imprisoned an unruly bannerman, Lord Tarbeck. The redoubtable Lady Tarbeck responded by capturing 3 Lannisters, including young Stafford, whose sister was betrothed to cousin Tywin. Send back my lord and love, or these 3 shall answer for any harm that comes him, she had written to Castle Rock. Young Tywin suggested his father obliged by sending back Lord Tarbeck in 3 pieces. Lord Tytos was a gentler sort of lion, however, so Lady Tarbeck won a few more years for her mutton-head lord. Stafford wed and bred and blundered on till Oxcross. But Tywin Lannister endured, eternal as Castle Rock. So in Eddard's second chapter, when Ned objected no one man should hold both east and west, thinking it meant the Lannisters would control half the realm's armies, Robert claimed, Lord Tywin looms eternal as Casterly Rock. Yeah. And now you have a cripple for a son as well as a dwarf, my lord. How you'll hate that. The road led them through a burned village. Steelshanks called for a halt to allow them to water their horses. I know this place too, Jamie thought as he waited by the well. There had been a small inn where only a few foundation stones and a chimney now stood, and he got in for a cup of ale. The dark-eyed serving wench brought him cheese and apples, but the innkeeper refused his coin. It's an honor to have a knight of the Kingsguard under my roof, sir, the man had said. It's a tale I'll tell my grandchildren. Jaime looked at the chimney poking out of the weeds and wondered whether he had ever gotten those grandchildren. Did he tell them the Kingslayer once drank his ale and ate his cheese and apples? Was he ashamed to admit he fed the likes of me? Not that he would ever know. Whoever burned the inn had likely killed the grandchildren as well. He could feel his phantom fingers clench. When Steel Shanks said that perhaps they should have a fire and a bit of food, Jaime shook his head. I mislike this place. We'll ride on. By evenfall, they had left the lake to follow a rutted track through a wood of oak and elm. Oak and elm is interesting because those are the plants that most represent the weirwood without being the weirwood. Oak, Dione, also in addition to meaning the wife of God, means oak. Anyway, I guess ash and oak are more. I don't know about elm. I don't know what the significance would be of elm. Anyway, Jaime's stump was throbbing dully when Steelshanks decided to make camp. Chiron had brought a skin of dreamwine, thankfully. While Walton set the watches, Jaime stretched out near the fire and propped a rolled-up bearskin against the stump as a pillow for his head. The wench would have told him he had to eat before he slept to keep his strength up, but he was more tired than hungry. He closed his eyes and hoped to dream of Circe. The fever dreams were all so vivid. He's thinking how Brienne would have looked after him even as he wants a vivid Circe dream. Naked and alone, he stood, surrounded by enemies with stone walls all around him, pressing close. The rock, he knew. He could feel the immense weight of it above his head. He was home. He was home and whole. He held his right hand up and flexed his fingers to feel the strength in them.
Flexing his fingers like John.
Yep, and there's going to be more like John in here, too. It felt as good as sex, as good as swordplay. 4 fingers and a thumb. He had dreamed that he was maimed, but it wasn't so. Relief made him dizzy. My hand, my good hand. Nothing could hurt him so long as he was whole. So if whole means not hurt, then I guess this is technically correct, the best kind of correct. Around him stood a dozen tall, dark figures in cowled robes that hid their faces. In their hands were spears. Who are you? He demanded of them. What business do you have in Castle Rock? So LML would call this last hero math. We have Jaime, the last hero of Robert's Rebellion, and a dozen companions. They gave no answer, only prodded him with the points of their spears. He had no choice but to descend. Down a twisting passageway he went, narrow steps carved from the living rock, down and down. I must go up, he told himself. Up, not down. Why am I going down? Below the earth his doom awaited. He knew with the certainty of dream. Something dark and terrible lurked there, something that wanted him. Jaime tried to halt, but their spears prodded him on. If only I had my sword, nothing could harm me.
Also, like John, the Crypts of Winterfell.
Yep. He's gonna say, what place is this? That's exactly what I wrote.
Okay.
The Winterfell Crypts, sort of. The steps ended abruptly on echoing darkness. Jaime had the sense of vast space before him. He jerked to halt, teetering on the edge of nothingness. A spear point jabbed at the small of the back, shoving him into the abyss. He shouted, but the fall was short. He lay on his hands and knees upon soft sand and shallow water. There were watery caverns deep below Castle Rock, but this one was strange to him. What place is this? And as I said, the Winterfell Crypts. Your place, the voice echoed. It was 100 voices, 1,000, the voices of all Lannister since Land the Clever, who lived at the dawn of days. But most of all, it was his father's voice, and beside Lord Tywin stood his sister, pale and beautiful, a torch burning in her hand. So that does sound kind of like hands of pale fire there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Joffrey was there as well, the sun they'd made together, and behind them a dozen more dark shapes with golden hair. Sister, why has father brought us here? Us? This is your place, brother. This is your darkness. Her torch was the only light in the cavern. Her torch was the only light in the world. She turned to go. Stay with me, Jaime pleaded. Don't leave me here alone. But they were leaving. Don't leave me in the dark. Something terrible lived down here. Give me a sword at least. I gave you a sword, Lord Tywin said. So there is some reminder of Davos here as well, right? The idea of no, don't take the torch.
Right.
It was at his feet. Jaime groped under the water until his hand closed upon the hilt. Nothing can hurt me so long as I have the sword. As he raised the sword, a finger of pale flame flickered at the point and crept up along the edge, stopping a hand's breadth from the hilt. The fire took on the color of the steel itself, so it burned with a silvery blue light, and the gloom pulled back. Crouching, listening, Jaime moved in a circle, ready for anything that might come out of the darkness. The water flowed into his boots, ankle deep and bitterly cold. I guess he's not totally naked.
Yeah.
He's got boots. Beware the water, he told himself. There may be creatures living in it, hidden deeps. From behind came a great splash. Jamie whirled toward the sound, but the faint light revealed only Brienne of Tarth, her hands bound in heavy chains. I swore to keep you safe, the wench said stubbornly. I swore an oath. Naked, she raised her hands to Jamie. Sir, please, if you would be so good. The steel links parted like silk. A sword, Brienne begged, and there it was, scabbard, belt, and all. She buckled it around her thick waist. The light was so dim that Jamie could scarcely see her, though they stood a scant few feet apart.
Is that foreshadowing of the sword that Jaime gives her later?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In this light, she could almost be a beauty, he thought. In this light, she could almost be a knight. Brienne's sword took flame as well, burning silvery blue. The darkness retreated a little more. The flames will burn so long as you live, he heard Cersei call. When they die, so must you. Sister, he shouted, stay with me, stay. There was no reply but the soft sound of retreating footsteps. Brienne moved her longsword back and forth, watching the silvery flames shift and shimmer. Beneath her feet, a reflection of the burning blade shone on the surface of the flat black water. She was as tall and strong as he remembered, and it seemed to Jaime that she had more of a woman's shape now. Do they keep a bear down here? Brienne was moving slow and wary, sword to hand. Step, turn, and listen. Each step made a little splash. A cave lion? Direwolf? Some bear? Tell me, Jaime, what lives here? What lives in the darkness?
It's funny that she says bear.
Yep. Doom. No bear, he knew. No lion. Only doom. In the cool, silvery blue light of the swords, the big wench looked pale and fierce. I mislike this place. I'm not fond of it myself. Their blades made a little island of light, but all around them stretched a sea of darkness, unending. My feet are wet. We could go back the way they brought us. If you climbed on my shoulders, you'd have no trouble reaching that tunnel mouth. Then I could follow Cersei. He could feel himself growing hard at the thought and turned away so Brienne would not see. Listen, she put a hand on his shoulder and he trembled at the sudden touch. She's warm. Something comes. Brienne lifted her sword to point off to his left. There! He peered into the gloom until he saw it too. Something was moving through the darkness. He could not quite make it out. Man on a horse. No, two riders side by side. Down here beneath the rock? It made no sense. Yet there came two riders on pale horses, men and mounts, both armed. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat upon him was Death, and hell followed with him.
I love that.
The Destiers emerged from the blackness at a slow walk. They make no sound, Jaime realized. No splashing, no clink of mail, nor clop of hoof. He remembered Eddard Stark riding the length of Aerys' throne room, wrapped in silence. Only his eyes had spoken, the Lord's eyes, cold and gray and full of judgment. Is it you, Stark? Jaime called. Come ahead. I never feared you living. I do not fear you dead. Brienne touched his arm. There are more. He saw them too. They were armored all in snow, it seemed to him, and ribbons of mist swirled back from their shoulders. The visors of their helms were closed, but Jaime Lannister did not need to look upon their faces to know them. 5 had been his brothers, Oswell Went and John Derry, Lewin Martell, a Prince of Dorne, the White Bull, Gerald Hightower, Sir Arthur Dayne, Sword of the Morning, and beside them, crowned in mist and grief, with his long hair streaming behind him, rode Rhaegar Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone, and rightful heir to the Iron Throne.
Hey, you remember me saying that the names of the people that Ned says was at the Tower of Joy with him? There were 3 that had something added to their name, which was Willem Dustin, Sir Arthur Dayne, and Oswald Went. Well, you have the same kind of thing going on here now with Oswald Went, John Derry. Then you get Lewin Martell, a Prince of Dorne, the White Bull, Gerald Hightower, Sir Arthur Dayne, Sword of the Morning, and then Rhaegar Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone. So you got 4 people there that something was added to their name. Might hint that at the beginning of the story they were still alive. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. You don't frighten me, he called, turning as they split to either side of him. He did not know which way to face. Oh, and there's certainly those are the ones that we think are I don't know. I don't know about Rhaegar, but certainly
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still possible. Like I said, but you don't see it on the page. You got to question it.
it's interesting. But it's Rhaegar and the three that we the three shrewd-eyed Westerosi,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Right.
Right, and there definitely been lots of hints that Rhaegar might be alive. George has dropped a lot of hints like that. So
Oh yeah. So yeah, that even though I had said that for the Tower of Joy, the names that he chooses to add stuff to here fits
are
in.
literally the three. Well, potentially the three. I mean, certainly that's our working theory for now. Anyway, the
Yeah.
three shrewd-eye
Yeah.
Westerosi and
You
Rhaegar.
got the Quiet Brother, you got Mance Raider, and you got Corn Halfhand.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
You don't frighten me, he called, turning as they split to either side of him. He did not know which way to face. I will fight you one by one or all together. But who is there for the wench to duel? She gets cross when you leave her out. I swore an oath to keep him safe, she said to Rhaegar Shade. I swore a holy oath. We all swore oaths, said Sir Arthur Dayne so sadly. Shades dismounted from their ghostly horses. When they drew their longswords, it made not a sound. He was going to burn the city, Jaime said, to leave Robert only ashes. He was your king, said Derry. You swore to keep him safe, said Wirt. And the children, them as well, said Prince Lewin. He is the one that would care about the children.
Yep.
Prince Rhaegar burned with a cold light, now white, now red, now dark. I left my wife and children in your hands. I never thought he'd hurt them. Jaime's sword is burning less brightly now. I was with the king. Killing the king, said Sir Arthur. Cutting his throat, said Prince Lewin. The king you had sworn to die for, said the White Bull. The fires that ran along the blade were guttering out, and Jaime remembered what Cersei had said. No. Terror closed a hand about his throat. Then his sword went dark, and only brands burned as the ghosts came rushing in.
So the
No.
more he doubts himself, the more the flame goes out.
What's that?
The more he doubts himself,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
more the flame
Yeah.
goes out.
It does seem almost like cause and effect the way it's presented. No, he said. No, 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 no. Heart pounding, he jerked awake and found himself in starry darkness amidst a grove of trees. He could taste bile in his mouth, and he was shivering with sweat, hot and cold at once. When he looked down for his sword hand, his wrist ended in leather and linen, wrapped snug around an ugly stump. He felt sudden tears well up in his eyes. I felt it. I felt the strength in my fingers and the rough leather of the sword's grip. My hand. My lord.
That right there. He keeps feeling the finger. I know amputees always feel their phantom fingers and everything, but it's a reoccurring thing with Jaime that he remembers the feeling of the fingers. He feels his phantom fingers. He closes, and that's the essence that's going to animate the dead man's hand. That's going to be added to him, just like Kyber said that. I entered a room and I knew a woman had been there before because her essence was left there in the chair. I mean, that's the essence.
Well, he's about to say that, in fact. He's literally about to say that.
Okay.
Anyway. My lord, Kyburn knelt beside him, his fatherly face all crinkly with concern. What is it? I need to cry out. Steelshanks Walton stood above them, tall and dour. What is it? Why did you scream? A dream, only a dream. Jaime stared at the camp around him, lost for a moment. I was in the dark, but I had my hand back. He looked at the stump and felt sick all over again. There's no place like that beneath the rock, he thought. His stomach was sour and empty, and his head was pounding where he'd pillowed it against the stump. Kyburn felt his brow. You still have a touch of fever. A fever dream. Jaime reached up. Help me. Steelshanks took him by his good hand and pulled him to his feet. Another cup of dream wine? Asked Kyburn. No, I've dreamt enough this night. He wondered how long it was till dawn. Somehow he knew that if he closed his eyes, he would be back in that dark, wet place again. Milk of the poppy, then? And something for your fever? You are still weak, my lord. You need to sleep, to rest. That is the last thing I mean to do. The moonlight glimmered pale upon the stump where Jaime had rested his head. The moss covered it so thickly he had not noticed before, but now he saw that the wood was white. It made him think of Winterfell and Ned Stark's heart tree. It was not him, he thought. It was never him. The stump was dead, and so was Stark, and so were all the others. Prince Rhaegar and Sir Arthur and the children, and Aerys. Aerys is most dead of all. Do you believe in ghosts, Maester? He asked Kyburn. So notice that the moonlight reveals the truth. Anyway.
Yes.
So, see Triplet Targaryens, episode 5 and 7.
That
The
counts for 2.
man's face grew strange. Once, at the Citadel, I came into an empty room and saw an empty chair. Yet I knew a woman had been there only a moment before. The cushion was dented where she'd sat. The cloth was still warm, and her scent lingered in the air. If we leave our smells behind us when we leave a room, surely something of our souls must remain when we leave this life. Hybern spread his hands. The Archmaesters did not like my thinking, though. Well, Marwyn did, but he was the only one. So I think this is probably the second mention of Marwyn, the first one being way back with Mary Mosdor.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway.
Little clues here and there that George is laying for Marwyn.
Yep. Jaime ran his fingers through, and of course they those are arguably tied together and both as somewhat necromancy kind of things, right?
Right.
They've learned from the same guy, and he is the master of higher mysteries. He knows everything that anyone knows about magic, essentially, and he's taught these two.
Right.
Jaime ran his fingers through his hair. Walton, he said, saddle the horses. I want to go back. Back? Steelshanks regarded him dubiously. He thinks I'm mad, and perhaps I have. What madness is this? Anyway, I want something in Harrenhal. Lord Vargo holds it now, him and his bloody mummers. You have twice the men he does. If I don't serve you up to your father as commanded, Lord Bolton will have my hide. We press on to King's Landing. Once Jaime might have countered with a smile and a threat, but one-handed cripples do not inspire much fear. What his brother would do? Tyrion would find a way. Lannisters lie, Steelshanks. Didn't Lord Bolton tell you that? The man frowned suspiciously. What if he did? Unless you take me back to Harrenhal, the song I sing my father may not be one the Lord of the Dreadfort would wish to hear. I might even say it was Bolton ordered my hand cut off, and Steelshanks Walton who swung the blade. Walton gaped at him. That isn't so. No, but who will my father believe? Jaime made himself smile the way he used to smile when nothing in the world could frighten him. It would be so much easier if we just go back. We'll be on our way again soon enough, and I'd sing such a sweet song in King's Landing you'll never believe your ears. You get the girl and a nice fat purse of gold as thanks. Gold? Walton liked that well enough. How much gold? I haven't. Why? How much would you want? By the time the sun came up, they were halfway back to Harrenhal. Jaime pushed his horse much harder than he had the day before, and Steelshanks and the Northmen were forced to match his pace. Even so, it was midday before they reached the castle on the lake. Beneath the darkening sky that threatened rain, immense walls and 5 great towers stood black and ominous. It looked so dead. The walls were empty, the gates closed and barred, but high above the Barbican a single banner hung limp. The black goat of Qohor, he knew. Jaime cupped his hands to shout, You in there! Open your gates, or I'll kick them down! It was not until Qyburn and Steelshanks added their voices that a head finally appeared on the battlements above them. He goggled down at them, then vanished. A short time later, they heard the portcullis being drawn upward. The gates swung open, and Jaime Lannister spurred his horse through the walls, scarcely glancing at the murder holes as he passed beneath them. He'd been worried that the goat might not admit them, but it seemed as if the brave companions still thought of them as allies. Fools. A common mistake, as Ramsay points out. The outer ward was deserted. Only the long slate-roofed stable showed any signs of life, and it was not horses that interested Jaime just then. He reined up and looked about. He could hear sounds from somewhere behind the Tower of Ghosts, the men shouting in half a dozen tongues. Steelshanks and Qyburn rode up on either side. Get what you came back for, and we'll be gone again, said Walton. I want no trouble with the mummers. Tell your men to keep their hands on their sword hilts, and the mummers will want no trouble with you. 2 to 1, remember? Jaime's head jerked round at the sound of a distant roar, faint but ferocious. It echoed off the walls of Harrenhal, and the laughter swelled up like the sea. All of a sudden, he knew what was happening. That, of course, could be intervention.
Yeah.
Have we come too late? His stomach did a lurch, and he slammed his spurs into his horse, galloping across the outer ward, beneath an arched stone bridge, around the Wailing Tower, and through the flowstone yard. They had her in the bear pit. This bear pit logistics don't make any sense to me because it's like 5 feet deep and it's an 8-foot tall bear with a 6-foot tall woman. So I'm not sure how that works. Anyway,
Yeah.
King Harren the Black had wished to do even his bear baiting in lavish style. Pit was 10 yards across and 5 yards deep, walled in stone, floor
5 yards deep.
and is circled by 6 tiers of marble benches.
Yeah, it's 15 feet deep.
Oh, okay. 5 yards. Okay. I think I misread that as 5 feet when I was reading this the first time. Okay. Okay, that works. I guess. I mean, bears can climb, but it may not be very climbable.
Yeah.
The brave companions filled only a quarter of the seats. Jamie saw as he swung down clumsily from his horse. The sellswords were so fixed in the spectacle beneath that only those across the pit noticed their arrival. Brienne wore the same ill-fitting gown she'd worn to supper with Roose Bolton. No shield, no breastplate, no chainmail, not even boiled leather, only pink satin and Moorish lace. Maybe the goat thought she was more amusing when dressed as a woman. Half her gown was hanging off in tatters, and her left arm dripped blood where the bear had raked her. At least they gave her a sword. The wench held it one-handed, moving sideways, trying to put some distance between her and the bear. That's no good. The ring's too small. She needed to attack, to make a quick end to it. Good steel was a match for any bear, but the wench seemed afraid to close. The mummer showered her with insults and obscene suggestions. This is none of our concerns, Steelshanks warned Jamie. Lord Bolton said the wench was theirs to do with as they liked. Her name's Brienne. Jamie descended the steps past a dozen startled sellswords. Vargo Hoat had taken the Lord's box in the lowest tier. Lord Vargo, he called over the shouts. The cohort almost spilt his wine. Kingflayer? The left side of his face was bandaged clumsily, linen over his ear spotted with blood. Pull her out of there. Stay out of this, Kingflayer, unless you'd like another thump. He waved the wine cup. Your thimuth, it bit off my ear. Small wonder her father will not ransom such a freak. A roar turned Jamie back around. Bear was 8 feet tall. Bear could gain with a pelt, he thought, though likely smarter. The beast did not have the reach the mountain had with that monster greatsword of his, though. Bellowing in fury, the bear showed a mouthful of great yellow teeth, then fell back to all fours and went straight at Brienne. There's your chance, Jamie thought. Strike! Now! Instead, she poked out ineffectually with the point of her blade. The bear recoiled, then came on, rumbling. Brienne slid to her left and poked again at the bear's face. This time he lifted a paw to swat the sword aside. He's wary, Jamie realized. He's gone up against other men. He knows swords and spears can hurt him, but that won't keep him off for long. Kill him, he shouted, but his voice was lost amongst all the other shouts. Brienne heard she gave him a sign. She moved around the pit, keeping the wall at her back. Too close. The bear pins her by the wall. The beast turned clumsily, too far and too fast. Quick as a cat, Brienne changed direction. There's the wench I remember. She leapt in to land a cut across the bear's back. Roaring, the beast went up on his hind legs again. Brent scrambled back away. Where's the blood? Then suddenly he understood. Jamie rounded on Hoat. You gave her a tourney sword. Goat brayed laughter, sprayed him with wine spittle. Of course. I'll pay her bloody ransom, gold, sapphires, whatever you want. Pull her out of there. You want her? Go get her. So he did. Put his good hand on the marble rail and vaulted over, rolling as he hit the sand. The bear turned at the thump, sniffing, watching this new intruder warily. Jamie scrambled to one knee. Well, what in 7 hells do I do now? Filled his fist with sand. Kingslayer? You heard Brienne say, astonished. Jamie, he uncoiled, flinging the sand at the bear's face. The bear mauled the air and roared like blazes. Notice he's correcting wench to Brienne, and he's correcting Kingslayer to Jamie.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? Something stupid. Get behind me. He circled toward her, putting himself between Brienne and the bear. You get behind me. I have the sword. A sword with no point and no edge. Get behind me. He saw something half buried in the sand and snatched it up with his good hand. It proved to be a human jawbone with some greenish flesh still clinging to it, crawling with maggots. Charming, he thought, wondering whose face he held. The bear was edging closer, so Jimmy whipped his arm around and flung bone, meat, and maggots at the beast's head. He missed by a good yard. I'd lop my left hand off as well for all the good it does me. Brienne tried to dart around, but he kicked her legs out from under her. She fell in the sand, clutching the useless sword. Jamie straddled her, and the bear came charging. There was a deep twang, and a feathered shaft sprouted suddenly beneath the beast's left eye. Blood and slaver ran from his open mouth, and another bolt took him in the leg. The bear roared, reared. He saw Jamie and Brienne again and lumbered toward them. More crossbows fired, the quarrels ripping through fur and flesh. At such short range, the bowman could hardly miss. Shafts hit as hard as maces, but the bear took another step. Poor, dumb, brave brute. Uh-oh.
It's okay.
Swap sides.
Yeah, it's raining like crazy here, so I knew it was going to happen eventually.
When the beast swiped at him, he danced aside, shouting, kicking sand. The bear turned to follow his tormentor and took another 2 quarrels in the back. He gave one last rumbling growl, settled back onto his haunches, stretched out in the bloodstained sand, and died. Mother Royan, just FYI, overly sarcastic productions on YouTube does the Epic of Gilgamesh. Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
That is good to know.
Thank you.
Brienne got back to her knees, clutching the sword and breathing short, ragged breaths. Steelshank's archers were winding their crossbows and reloading while the bloody members shouted curses and threats at them. Rorge and Three Toes had swords out, Jaime saw, and Zola was uncoiling his whip. You flew my bear, Vargohote shrieked. And I'll serve you the same if you give me trouble, Steelshanks threw back. We're taking the wench. Her name is Brienne, Jaime said. Brienne, the maid of Tarth. You are still maiden, I hope. Her broad, homely face turned red. Yes? Oh, good, Jaime said. I only rescue maidens. Tehodi said, You'll have your ransom for both of us. A Lannister pays his debts. Now fetch some ropes and get us out of here. Bugger that, Rorge growled. Kill them, Hote. You bloody well wish you had. Cohort hesitated. Half his men were drunk, the Northmen stone sober. There were twice as many. Some of the crossbowmen had reloaded by now. Pull them out, Hote said, and then to Jaime, I have chosen to be merciful. Tell your lord father. I will, my lord. Not that it will do you any good. Not until they were half a league from Harrenhal and out of range of archers on the walls did Steelshanks Walton let his anger show. Are you mad, Kingslayer? Did you mean to die? What madness is this? No man can fight a bear with his bare hands. One bare hand and one bare stump, Jaime corrected. But I hoped you'd kill the beast before the beast killed me. Elsewise, Lord Bolton would have peeled you like an orange, no? Steelshanks cursed him roundly for a fool of a Lannister, spurred his horse, and galloped away up the column. Sir Jaime, even in soiled pink satin and torn lace, ran look more like a man in a gown than a proper woman. I am grateful, but we're well away. Why come back? A dozen quips came to mind, each crueler than the one before, but Jaime only shrugged. I dreamed of you, he said. Up next, Storm 45.
It was a wet dream, too. They were in water.
Vivid and a dream of the naked woman he really wants. But anyway.
There you go.
Up next, Storm 45, Catelyn 5. Robb names his heir.
Yep.
And as you know, we will definitely be looking to see, are there any signs that anybody's upset about Jon breaking his vow or a bastard with no ties to the Riverlands being placed over them? I don't think you'll see any of that you'd expect to see.
Yeah.
Just saying, Catelyn's named Catelyn for a reason. It's Catelyn the Great. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
I like it, but I don't like it. You know what I mean?
Why is that?
I don't like her.
Well, I didn't mean the great as in she's great. I meant the great as in Catelyn great.
I don't know, it's in my mind, it should be somebody with Stark blood. That's all. But, I mean, she is Lady Stark, so.
Maybe he wants her to marry Jon. I've heard people suggest that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
She's really trapped.
Well, look at it this way. If she could marry Jon, that means Jon's no longer with the Watch. And if Jon's no longer with the Watch, then Jon could be king.
Jon. You could order Jon to desert and pardon him for desertion.
Right.
So he acts like that's unprecedented or something.
Well, actually, he can't order Jon to desert because the night doesn't take part.
Theoretically, he's not supposed to follow, but you know that Jon would obey that order even if he's not supposed to.
Right. That's a pretty good little chapter.
I don't know if I don't know if he'd be too happy about obeying the order to marry Catelyn. But
yeah, well,
that would certainly actually explain why she's trapped. But I mean, he is telling you, I have to have you safe, right? And Jason Mallister is like, yes, we'll be honored to have you, and we'll be taking you and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then anyway, so it does seem like there's something there. Now, if you want to add the whole Jon has to marry her and they have to have kids.
Yeah, no.
Anyway.
Now, it's not possible for Robb to know about Val, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, I didn't think so either. It's a question.
Of course, that does, you know, that is the theory that Stannis knows that she is an appropriate heir for Winterfell and that there has to be a Stark.
Right. Yeah, that's why he ties her and Winterfell together. I'm doing accounting for Lizzie today. Yeah, I mean that would be in my mind the only I mean, granted, it's she's the most beautiful woman in the world, and it's just a friend's benefit. But it makes more sense to tie her and Winterfell together if he knows, which I think he knows exactly who John is, and he knows exactly who Val is. So, I mean, if it's true, and Mance Rayder was talking to Stannis, was talking to Lord Manderley, and all that before. Um, Coming upon the king's caravan before they hit Winterfell. I mean, it makes sense that Stannis knows exactly everything that's going on.
I'm impressed that we got through this in 45 minutes because it's pretty long.
Yeah.
I guess
I didn't interrupt too many times.
I guess I could let these go a little longer than in terms of maybe you'll see 3 emails from me on some of these.
I know. Well, I mean, when you said it was a long chapter, and then as soon as you started, I'm like, I remember in the chapter, I'm like, it's not that long.
No, I trimmed it down a little because I knew I was adding notes, and so it would have been like 3 emails if I just had all my comments plus the removing nothing. It probably would have just barely been 3. So
Yeah.
Just a little more than 2 because I put each thing in a Google Keep notes, right? And those only hold so much, so I wind up usually with 2.
Now we've definitely covered more material and bigger chapters in the hour time frame.
No, that's what I'm saying. I got this a little longer. So you might start seeing 3 emails from me.
Okay. I hate to cut this short, but I got something I got to do.
Oh, no problem.
So it's Friday. Thank you everybody for joining us. Lady Thistle won the war today. She was first, and we appreciate it. So have a good, safe, fun weekend. We'll see you here Monday, and y'all take care. Bye. Bye, Richard.